All right, welcome everyone to today's Tech Talk. We have a guest speaker, Lukas Elmer from Renewal. He was so kind as to volunteer to talk about how they handle the whole thing with educating people from a junior level and also interns. When we were asking ourselves how should we deal with that, and there was a lot of discussion going on and a lot of ideas popping up within our team, Marion came up with the idea that Lukas could have a tech talk and to tell us how they could handle things, and I'm very happy that he agreed that you're here now. Thank you, and I'm really looking forward to your talk.
Cool.
Thank you.
So thank you for this kind introduction, and yeah, welcome everyone. Today I'm going to talk about interns and my approach, my personal approach to how to handle interns, and what maybe I did and what worked and what didn't. And I first want to start with something about me. So I've been in IMS from 2003 to 2007, and 1 year of this school is an internship, and the whole education counts as a normal apprenticeship. Then I also did my bachelor's at HSR and my master's at ETH in computer science. And I've supervised several interns since 2007. I've built two internship programs from scratch, and I'm also an expert of the PK19. These are the experts which observe and coach the examination, the final examination for the computer science apprenticeship in Switzerland. I'm a full stack open source software engineer. I love working with open source. I've been working with Rails since 2007, and now in the last few weeks or few months I started to do much more in front end, and I abandoned Rails a bit. I know it since a very long time, and yeah, now it's time for me for a change. I also love to learn and teach in general. I'm a meetup organizer, I'm a meetup presenter, and I also am a meetup participant. So today I first would like to talk about some intern backgrounds, and you will see there are very, very different backgrounds which I believe should be handled differently. Then the whole motivation why an intern could be good for business. I'm going to talk about how to get interns and how to employ them, and where I went looking for them. Then I'm going to talk about coaching, teaching and learning in general, and specifically about how to teach interns. And then I'm going to do a short reflection, does it pay off? And at the last point you can ask me anything. If you have any questions, then you can ask me how we handle it. So let's start with the intern backgrounds. So before we start with the backgrounds, I would like to go into some definitions. And first I want to define professionalism. So what means professionalism to me? There are some traits. You have worked in an environment, you are self-organized, you have project or business experience, and this results in that you know how stuff works. So you basically know how a project gets acquired, you know how it's done, you know how it's built, you know about companies, you know about company structures, you know a bit about bookkeeping. You've been involved in this stuff. You maybe had to to bring your bills you had, etc. Then a professional person also knows how to talk to a customer, at least, I mean, not on a daily basis, but you know what to say to a customer and whatnot. And you also have good communication skills, so you know how to work in a team, and you can handle deadlines, and you can work with project managers and project management, and yeah, basically you can think ahead. You know what's coming. If someone says, "Hey, I want this feature X," then you know, "Hey, this is going to be really tricky," or you think, "Ah, that's going to be fine." And the practice is, in my experience, mostly job independent. So, or the way I want to use it in this presentation, you can get this practice from any or from most practical working experience. Now the second thing I want to define here is theory, and I want to talk about technical theory. So here I want to say, you know, you can program, or you have written code, you know how those whole control flow works, you know about functions, classes, etc. Maybe you know a bit about concurrency, you know some theoretical difficult stuff. Then, well, you can use a laptop, you can probably set up a server, you can get things to work, and yeah, you can do stuff like that. Then you also know some related things, like networking, HTTP, you maybe work with UX and design, you know something about system design, project management, and security. And so the result is you can pick something, which doesn't mean you can bring it into production, but you can get things done. And this theory, this is of course job specific. So if you didn't study or didn't learn computer science, you won't know this theory. So the first intern I want to talk about, the first background, is the rookie. So this one has no theory and no practice. And this usually is after high school or often after secondary school, Sekundarschule. You do an apprenticeship, and for that you need special instructors, and I'm not going to talk about that in this talk. So I'm going to focus on the second one, the one who comes from the gymnasium, who needs an internship, or who wants to do an internship, and not a whole apprenticeship, maybe wants to go studying, but you cannot go studying computer science at the University of Applied Science University if you don't have this year of practical experience. And there's also, since about 2 years, there's a relatively new program which is being adopted very quickly, that you can get an internship and then start at the same time studying. And then you study 60% at the University of Applied Sciences, and you have an internship for 40%. And this is fixed for 3 or 4 years, for 4 years. So that's about these people, and they need to be very highly motivated, and they need some kind of formal education, I believe, at least in parallel or afterwards. And yeah, they need to know some related stuff. They need to be interested in the field of computer science independently if they've worked in it or not. They are not that young anymore. They're 18 to 20. And I'm going to say not that young anymore because you will see a bit later. Then there are the career changers. These are people like, for example, Marion, who have already a degree, but not in computer science, but maybe in a related field, maybe in business, maybe not in a related field, maybe in arts. and they have at least some work experience. And they basically are professionals already, so they know how to get up in the morning, they know if there's a deadline, they will be there, and yeah, they know how those things work. And they want a new challenge, in a new sector, they want a new job, and keep in mind that in computer science people are very spoiled, so we have some benefits which many others don't. And that's also a reason why some people want to join in computer science, but that may not be the right reason, or shouldn't be the only reason. Then those people have a bit skewed view of what you do as a programmer. And often they have a lot of respect. They believe, wow, this programmer is some kind of magician who does crazy stuff, and he has to be very good in math, and etc., which is totally not true, but that's how people view us a bit. And so the last point is they really need to be interested in learning those things. And what I also believe they have to do like an all-in, and not, yeah, I'm gonna start 20 or 40%, and besides that I'm gonna work for 60%. If you want an intern like that, this intern should be, yeah, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna learn that, I'm gonna focus on that as much as possible, and I want to work in that field. Then there are the non-professionals. They know the theory, but they don't know the practice. And as I've said before, they know how to do stuff. They know how to code or to hack. And especially here, I'm going to focus on the CMS, which I did. And this is basically an apprentice in the last year. And it's just before they become professional. So if you are looking for a quick win, then this is the guy you want to choose, because you have 1 year, and in this 1 year this person goes from having no clue at all from business and all those related stuff to being a full-blown professional. And what I've noticed is that at the beginning of this year, they're totally they don't know how to handle stuff. But after this year, it's very different, and after this year, it's also very easy to get a job. So it's just before they become very valuable. One challenge, though, is that they are very young, and I'm gonna come back to this later. So, what could the motivation be to employ interns? Well, maybe you've seen graphs like that. So there are a lot more job openings in computer science than there are students. You can see the green bars, they don't really match. In an ideal world, they would match. And, well, this leads to something like that, right? 404, no employee not found. Yeah, you hear that a lot. The second point is, well, of course you want to make money, and an intern is basically really cheap. Especially in this year, they don't earn that much. But I will also come back to that. It's going to be an investment. It's not going to be like someone comes here and then just works. But the first half year you will have to teach them, and in the second half year you can benefit as a company. And well, then the third thing is, I believe in a world where you should give back. And so if you get, then give, and if you learn, then teach. So, employing, how do you find those interns? Well, it's very different. So for the rookies and career changers, we never had job adverts, and they found us. And when they send this letter, then it's gonna be really tough to decide if you want this intern or not, because it's gonna be very hard for you to decide if this person has the potential or not, and also assessments are gonna be really hard. And well, you need to have some instincts here, and maybe also some faith, and maybe don't take too many interns at once. Then there are the non-professionals. We always got them from EMS, and especially from KSA and from KBW. I've been at KSA. I know those people, I know those teachers, and I know the program, and they, in my opinion, they are really undervalued. Just because 1 year later they're going to be very valuable, and many companies don't want to take that risk because they think it's like an apprentice, but that's totally not true. Then what we did, we went to present our company every year since 2 or 3 years, and there's an official event where there's one day and like 16 companies or 10 companies, and there are 2 rooms, and you have to present, and you have like 20 minutes time, and you have to pitch. So you have to pitch for a job opening, and it's really harsh there. So there's companies like there's many big companies. For example, Swisscom will be there, and for example HSR will be there. They're also looking for interns, and if you go there, you have to make a bit of a difference. So one thing we did was to say, hey, we want the best interns, and we want a requirement to do the internship with us is that in the final exam you will have a 5.5, for example. And of course, for the ones who don't want that, that's not good. But for the ones who want that, well, you are much more likely to get them. Then they will likely stay or go studying. And one thing that I learned is, don't let them just go when they go studying. So keep them employed. Like you can make a contract with 0 to 20%. You can say, hey, if you have semester vacation, then you can work for us. If you don't have if you have exams, then you don't need to work at anything. I also have a job advert here, so if you want to have a look, that's from last year. Then maybe about from where would I personally not take people. The thing is, this is very biased, and I'm very careful with private schools. I've been working with people with interns from private schools, and well, let's put it this way, it was just not the same. And well, some pro tips here. Check for I always double check the motivation. I mean, this is the most important part. And if you can, then also check if they are smart. I think if you have those two things, those two drivers, then it's gonna be a good internship. And then for the non-professionals, we always did assessments, and since we didn't want to spend that much time to do this whole assessment process, we had one day where they got 10 parts which they had to solve, and very basic stuff, like you have a denormalized person address table, and then you give them the data, and they have to create this ERM diagram where you have the users and the addresses and the many-to-many relationship, and they can do this stuff. They already know these things, or they should know. And at this assessment, we saw a lot of difference from the same school, just because some people are motivated and others are not. So let's talk about the wage and the timeline. So for the rookie and the career changers, we had an internship of 1 year or more, and what we thought was, well, we want to have an internship which is fair and from money wise, and we want to pay them as much as they generate versus as much as they cost. And in the first half year they cost a lot for us, because we spent quite a lot of time with them, and so we said, hey, you don't get much, but you get an internship. And actually to everyone where we made this offer, they agreed, because they're so desperate to finding an internship, and they want to work, and they want to learn to program. And we said, okay, that's fine. And then, so in the first 3 months, they only get 250 Swiss francs per month, and then 500, and that's not a lot. And after that, they get at least 750, but then depending on progress, it can grow very rapidly. So after that, it was always very individual, and it then also got to a normal wage after about 1 year. So we had this one guy, and he had his wage doubled like nearly every month, which was really cool for him, and which was also fair for us, because he started working on projects where we got 180 Swiss francs per hour, and we could bill like 20-30%, and then 40%, and then 50%. And after that point, it's no-brainer to give normal wage for me. And for the non-professionals, it's a bit different, because as I've said before, companies or some big companies are really pushing to get them, because they know how valuable they get in this short amount of time. And we gave them 1.4, and this is already pretty low compared to others. But we also had stuff like the 20% time, where they had 1 day per week where they could do anything they wanted. And we said, well, okay, if we have this, then this would be like 20% higher, think about that. And I think there was one person who really didn't like that, and he said, well, I'm not gonna do that for this amount of money. But everyone else said, well, okay, yeah, I guess it's fair, and they did it. And after the internship, they were really happy, because also towards the end of the internship, we raised their wage, depending on progress. And after the internship, they get a normal wage. And yes. So let's move to the next part, to the coaching, teaching, and learning part. And first, I believe that the best teachers are the best learners, because if you want to teach someone something, then you will be challenged, and you need to be better than the other person to teach something. And if you need to teach, well, how does HTTP work, and you don't know it yourself, it's going to be really tough. you're gonna have a tough time, because then this intern, you tell them, well, it works like this and this, and then 2 days later they come up with a counterexample, and you're like, so teaching, in general, I believe that you don't need this big written concept. And I think that in teaching you should do what feels right. Although, I also believe that you need to have some goals. And we have some goals which I published here. You will also get the slides later. You can click on those links. And this is, I can show it. It looks a bit like this. So in the first month you learn about Rails, then in the second month you start learning about security, OWASP, and there's a lot of material here to read for them. And they also need to learn Scrum if they want to work in a team, and etc. Yeah, I'm just gonna quickly scroll through it. So that's the rough guideline we used, and I think it's a very good starting point. But then during the internship you will have to adopt, because maybe you've seen the mobile project. Maybe the mobile project comes 2 months earlier, and then they learn it then. And what also was good is to check the goals every week, and basically it's a one-on-one, but with a bit extended one-on-one. So you get more goals, and especially the young ones, you need to sometimes take them by their hand and help them with stuff which for you would be totally clear. If someone tells you, hey, you need to know about JSONP, and then you can fire and forget. If it's a professional and he knows, well, it's my responsibility to do that, it's going to be clear. But for an intern and at this age, this is not always going to be clear. Then what we also did was every week, or at least every second week, show them some basics. This can be like 10 minutes, it can be an hour. And this is also something which can be a bit gamified. For example, you can say, hey, I want that the interns get to know my team, and then you can say, well, okay, in the next few weeks you have to go to one of our employees and say to them, you should teach me something, some basics. And this was the feedback that we've gotten was really good on that, on both sides. And then there are some learning platforms, and they are great for learning and tracking progress. And we, for example, use Code School. There's a lot more, like Code Academy and this HTML course, which they have. It's gotten to a point where it's really, really good. And if they do it, then they suddenly know some details you don't. You also have to be there for technical questions, obviously. And one thing which I also think was beneficial is if they have a learning project. And ideally, they would work on this project also in their free time. But, I mean, they're young and they still have the time. And some really like doing it. For example, one of our interns, he had a server, and then he wanted to know about HTTPS, and then we made this theoretical block week, and we said, well, okay, we're going to show the basics of HTTPS. And then he said, well, you know, let's encrypt. It's really new and it's really interesting, and I want to work on it. I said, yeah, sure. Then go ahead. You have your 20% limit. He said, well, I'm also going to work on it in my free time. Is that okay for you? He said, yeah. And then we also motivated him to do a tech talk about it and really present his findings. And it was really cool. And a lot of stuff I didn't know back then. Yes, now let's get a bit more into details for the different backgrounds. So for us, the rookie, you need to show them the right learning resources so they can learn. And what we did, we demanded very, very much independent work. Because if they are learning the technological stuff, they can do many things on their own, and they also need to learn, well, I just have to try. And maybe you've heard about rubber duck programming, right? Where you talk to a duck if you have a question, and then suddenly it magically resolves. And for the career changers, it's pretty much the same, but you don't need to, or in my opinion, you don't need to coach them that much. You don't need as much time as for the rookie. And this is also very different from person to person. So you cannot generalize that, well, you don't need much time. Maybe you have an intern who really needs much time, but we said, well, that's not the intern for us. Then for the non-professionals, it was very important to us to show them all the roles and, well, ideally put them in the roles. And sometimes you have to slow them down because, as I said before, they know how to hack and they know how to solve a problem, but yeah, maybe they have to rewrite the code, and they will say, oh no, I have to rewrite this again, and can't I just do this small change? And yeah, it's also, it comes with age and with maturity, but that's also one of the challenges. Then learning. So for the rookie and the career changers, we believed in that most programmers are self-taught, so let them work on stuff independently. And especially for the career changers, they only need to learn the technical stuff. And sometimes we underestimated how many things there are to learn in a company. There's so many things which are totally trivial to all of us as professionals, which they need to learn. So yeah, the non-professionals, they need a lot of practice. And I want to also add some two special things we did. And the first one, yeah, the 2 interns at once can really be a benefit, especially if they have trivial questions which they can ask each other. They will, in the first 2 or 3 weeks, 80% of the question they can answer themselves. And also for these learning blocks, it can cut the time in half, so the effort per intern can be nearly cut in half. And what we also did is, at the beginning of the internship, we did a special learning project. We went to a customer, to a real customer, or no, it always was a real customer. and it was also a real customer to us. And maybe it was someone we knew, maybe we knew it was a small project, but then we said, okay, you will do the whole negotiation, planning, implementation, you will do the meetings, you will do the deployment, and this will all be organized by the intern. And of course you will have to be there for coaching and giving them feedback. But what this really helps with is to build this professionalism and really see all those roles. And we also said that customers can pay as much as they want, or as much as the intern negotiates. And after 160 hours, we just make a cut, and we make this very clear to the customers, because it's very easy to say, well, he's just an intern, he can work for a bit more, we have some spare hours, right? So, no, that's not true. That's not how it works. After this 160 hours, it becomes a normal company project with a normal pricing, and it gets integrated into a team. So to the reflection part, does it pay off? So for me, the challenges where it's really hard to get feedback and compare, because you can go to the internet and say, hey, how was your internship? And they will say, well, it was great. And then you're going to ask them, yeah, how was it compared to other internships in your class? And he will say, well, I'm very glad that I was here. And you say, okay, why? He said, well, I just learned so much more than the others. But they cannot tell you why exactly. They just go to friends and talk around, and well, they say, my internship is much better than yours. Maybe the other does the same, but I've heard interesting stories about other internships. And yeah, one challenge is also quality versus learning. So maybe you've worked with a relatively new technology, and you had this big project which came in, and you said, well, are we going to do it with Rails, or are we going to do it with Angular and React? And you're like, yeah, maybe I'm going to do it with Rails, because you're comfortable with it, and because it's not much risk, and because you know you can provide quality software. And for the interns, it's very similar, except that everything for them is new. And to learn also means to make mistakes. And they will make mistakes. And if you always stop them before they make a mistake, they will not learn it. And if you let them learn, you have to basically let them learn the hard way. And yeah, that was a really big challenge, which I also don't have a patent solution to. Then the age. Well, in our company we had a lot of freedom, for especially considering time planning. And if you can just say, well, I have this time, I work a month, and you have to organize it yourself, then they may come to you. And last year it was, for me it was funny. Others would think about it as really rude. They came to us and said, well, I'm reading this guide, and I want to meet with friends later, and I want to go home, and is it okay if I read those guides on the train? And yeah, maybe a bit at home later. Maybe the first time you say, yeah, sure. I mean, if a colleague of yours does that, it's fine, right? But if then it goes on, and the quest they search for the limit. And you have to provide them with limit. I mean, I'm sure some of you are parents, right? And kids, they sometimes just want to learn about the limits. Then the coaching time. This was sometimes a very hard one, because if you're working on this big project and you have this deadline coming up, and as a professional, you know this deadline is really, really important. You sometimes think like, yeah, I could just drop the interns, maybe not do the meeting this week. Maybe it's okay for 1 or 2 times, but in the end, it's a long-term commitment, and if you want to do it, you want to do it right. At least that's what it was for me. And yeah, also the last part, in the first half of the internship, well, there's not much gain for you and for the company. But then on the other hand, in the second part of the internship, in the second half, you can make a lot of money, and you can have someone who's a really good employee. So now to my personal opinion, did it really pay off? And for me, the young and very well educated people stayed, and this already means a lot. Then I believe that financially it paid off. I personally learned a lot, also technically, because if you have to explain them, you need to take time to learn. I got great feedback from our interns, and they also wrote some testimonials, and I was really happy when I read them. And well, I'm proud of the results, and I'm proud of that we could do that as a company, but also as an individual. I think it's really good to teach and to give back. Yeah, that's it. So now I'm sure you have some questions.
Yeah, so was the internship always exactly or initially planned for 1 year? So it's not like you make 3 months or half a year internship, but always the least amount is 1 year.
For the non-professionals, it was exactly 1 year. This is just given by the schools in Zurich. And for the others, it's very individual. So we had one intern who started, I think in May, and he was there until September or August the next year, and then he went studying. So he had very clear plans of what he wanted to do. And one intern we had was, she started in, I think, February, and she knew that she wanted to study in September, but only part-time. And then she started studying, and after half a year she then worked part-time. So it's very individual.
I have one more. About the 160 hours initial free project, how many of those did you do, and how many of those did get to a true customer in regards of an acquisition strategy? So it's like for me it's a bit like a dealer. The first job is free, then you have the contact. Mm-hmm. And also about the quality of the software, like after the 160 hours, did you have to start from scratch? Was it prototype to learn, or could you extend from it? So what was the experience there?
This is a very good question. We try to make the projects really small, and like nothing should happen to this project after this time. So we never had a customer who we thought, well, this would be a really cool customer because he has this big application he wants to do. Or at least we didn't work on this exact application. So if you say 160 hours, then maybe for you it would be 80 hours project. And maybe 40 hours of those 80 would be, well, getting the requirements and planning and stuff like that. So it's 40 hours and that's 1 week. But that's not a lot you can do. So I think we didn't convert, or from a sales perspective, we didn't gain any customer directly. But on the other hand, we've worked with people we wouldn't work normally. But it's very long term, right?
Not yet contact. Maybe later. It's good to have a contact.
Yes.
At least.
Absolutely.
Well, what is the ratio of like senior to junior to interns at your company? And do you think this matters?
Yes, this matters, and this is something I wanted to list on the challenges. At some point, we really had too many interns, and it was especially in the first 2 or 3 months, where we had 3 interns at once, which we said, okay, those 3 are really good, and we want to have them as interns. And the difficult thing there was to get them like integrated into or you first have this one big project where you have to coach a lot, and then you need to integrate them into your team, right? And if there's 2 interns and 2 seniors in one project, things can get a bit stressful, especially if you have a company policy where you say, well, everyone can merge to master. And then, yeah, you get a bit into trouble like that if you say all the interns can merge into master like that. Yeah, especially if they review themselves, right? And
They can review themselves. One intern can review the other intern.
yes. Sorry. Yeah. I meant it. Usually it works somehow, right? But yeah, don't have too many interns at once. Maybe 2 or 3 at a time for 15 people.
Do you distinguish junior and senior?
No. We didn't.
Are they all going towards the same sort of profile, or are you distinguishing that some people go further into user experience design, some more to customers, some more to technical, some more to servers, or is that pretty much random?
Well, we want to give them the chance to choose, but as you know, as an agency, it's not always that easy. So, especially in their 20% time, they can choose whatever they want. And one of our interns, he learned a lot about iOS development, and we didn't do native iOS development, we always did it with something like Ionic. And well, he really went in there and learned the native way to develop an iOS application. And so they can specialize, and especially if there's a project coming up and someone wants a native iOS application, we can sell that experience. Because we have someone, after a year, who is a professional software engineer who can build an iOS application. So yes, they can and they should specialize in something if they want to.
The 1 day per week work on anything you want will apply only to interns and not the other personnel, right?
No, this applies to everyone.
To everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
but that also includes if you have a new technology, then you learn it on that day, and you don't learn a new technology on the project in general. And also some company related stuff is also in this 20% time. So for example, a strategy meeting will also be in that time, and in the end it's maybe 6 hours a week where you can freely choose. And actually we have more the problem that people didn't take this time.
Okay.
It sounds a bit crazy at first, but it's if you are a professional software developer and you're aware that the customer needs this and this and this thing, and you should work on it. It's really easy to say, well, today I'm not gonna do investment, I'm gonna work on the project.
Yeah.
Because on Monday there's the Scrum meeting, and on Friday I have this time, but I'm still in the ticket and I want to get it done. Initially we also had this time only on Friday. We set a fixed one on Friday, but then we changed it to have it spread over the week.
Yeah. And what are people working like? Are there some? I have in mind that there's one feature that was implemented. We have the hack days here, and one feature that got implemented for a client was written in one of those hack days. Does this happen a lot during the 20% time when somebody's working on a project and thinks this feature would be really cool? I know maybe the customer won't pay for it, but I just because I'm so I want to do it.
Yeah. We were always a bit in between doing that and not doing that, because of course the dangerous thing is if you give the customer your little finger, he will take your whole hand.
Yeah.
And that said, well, yes, we did stuff like that. We did refactorings which we didn't have time for, or the customer didn't want to pay us. We did some linting configuration, for example, for projects where we thought, well, it would be really nice to have just 2 hours to do that, but the customer is not going to pay for it. What we also did was looking at new technologies, and this really helped because we had this one client who wanted a real-time chat, and at first we thought, well, let's do it with Rails, and then on second thought we thought, well, it's not going to be that fun with Rails. So we decided to do it with Firebase, and we could only do that because we knew it before. And then we could implement this chat. It's a real chat, which is real time and secure in 3-4 hours, including deployment. And you were like, well, you used the right technology and you just can't do that. Of course, there are so many small companies who come and they make an offer for half the price you do because they know this new stuff.
Yeah.
How do you track in the company when you have interns and juniors and people who earn less but you cannot bill fully? And then you have seniors who still can work a day on something else. How do you track that you're billing enough, that you're still surviving?
Well, basically you look at the bookkeeping, and from there you can see the numbers. I mean, this is, I don't have to tell you that.
Yeah, sure, but I'm thinking about when
the second thing is, if everyone works in this investment time, the things they don't need, or they don't work on a project, they can work 80% of their time on the project. And that's the goal. And maybe of this 80%, there's sales people who, well, it's really hard to sell those hours. Or project management, which maybe are included in your hours in general. What we did with the interns was they had a special ticket. They had an intern ticket, and we always worked with tickets, and we estimated the hours of a ticket. And then once it was reached, the interns were advised to book on a separate ticket. Well, of course, with the exception that the intern said, well, this is a really, really tricky feature, and it was just estimated wrong, or the customer had additional wishes, then they could book more on that.
But then you expect that on those 4 days, like, okay, you spread it out, but on those 4 days you would expect 8 hours of billing time. When you say 80% is the goal, and you have 1 day to do other things, you would have to bill 8 hours on the other 4 days.
Well, we didn't work 8 hours a day, so it was very individual. So maybe someone worked 10 hours or 12 hours a day, and then on another day where the weather was nice, like today, he only worked for 4 hours. And yes, I expected that if you work on a customer project, all those hours should be billable. And especially things like email, of course you have to write email sometimes in a project, but this should also go to a ticket. Well, in practice it looks a bit different, right? Because then there's this customer who doesn't want to pay, basically, and you don't want to lose him, and you know that you still make money as a company if you only bill 60%. Yeah, and then you do that. One thing which was also pretty hard was to get the statistics right. It's much easier if you only have senior developers and everyone in your whole company works at the same pace. It's really much easier to get statistics, which means something. Especially people are on vacation, and sometimes you notice when the people who work faster go on vacation, then you see that your billing average will go down.
You have to say that people don't earn anything while they're on vacation.
Yeah, that's also.
That's an hourly basis.
Yes. We have the vacation and 3 days in our hourly wage, but we guarantee 80% of work. So it's an hourly rate based contract which guarantees 80 to 100% time to work on. So we never had the problem that we had to say to our employees, hey, don't work that much. It was more the other way around, that we had too many projects, too much work.
And so that Friday work is also, but it's also part of those hours.
Yes. Yes. And we also changed from, well, having the 20%, like 100% work and 20% doing investment to, well, you work as many percent as you do, and then 20% of this you can do investment. So if someone does 50%, then he can do 10% investment. Yes.